The journey of Easter. The journey of each one of us picking up whatever it is that's heavy in our lives and walking forward with it and knowing that there is a new day coming. The same journey is one that Patrick, believe it or not, St. Patrick, who was not, by the way, Irish. You know, I remember speaking to a group from the religion department at Old Dominion University, and I said to that group of very staid traditional Christians, as I began speaking, I said, so we all know that Jesus was not a Christian, right? And they all went, what? Yes. Patrick was thought to have been born in Scotland, actually, in 385. That's in the 4th century, and his name was Maewyn Succat. He became St. Patrick in time. We become that Christed presence of us in time. And he was born into a collapsing Roman Empire. At about the age of 15 or 16, he was enslaved by the Irish. And he wound up herding pigs. He had quite a journey, and at this point in his life, early on in his teenage years, he had to determine whether he would be bitter or would just get better. And Patrick had that kind of determination. In a pasture, it is said that he prayed, and I quote, more and more, maybe he had developed an Irish accent by then, we're going to assume he did, more and more, there grew in me the love of God. My faith was enlarged. My spirit stirred. He's credited with having, at that point in his life, seen a shamrock, a 3-leafed shamrock, and thinking of the Trinity at that time. So he, at an early age, knew himself to be a metaphysician. He was able to see in nature the message that God was giving him. And he used that metaphor and carried it forward in his life. And one day, it said, he heard a voice in a dream. It was to him the voice of God, and he heard this dream say, your ship is ready. He escaped his captors in Ireland, went to the coast, and sure enough, there was a ship there waiting to take him back to England. He went and studied in a monastery, and he made a lot of interesting relationships while he was there. Eventually, he becomes a bishop, and he returned to Ireland. He returned to the very people that had captured him as a teenager and enslaved him, and he wasn't alone. He returned at that time as a bishop, and what did he do? Did he get even? No, he had made the decision. He had determined that he would just get better, not bitter. And what St. Patrick is known for is the schools that he then encouraged to be built. Monasteries were built. Churches were built. To the peace and the love of God, they were dedicated. And the people in the common people in Ireland absolutely loved St. Patrick. His peers really criticized him. They had a hard time with him. He was arrested by the Druids over and over and over again. He faced chaos. And yet he became the patron saint of Ireland, being said to have driven out the snakes. That he basically is teaching you and I that it's up to us. It's up to you in your life right now, this day, to determine whether you'll experience the best and just leave the rest, or you'll go through your heart with a weight of stone. Elizabeth Smith, to her, when our youth director, by the way, this is Elizabeth, our youth director, who comes in every Sunday and introduces the children. She's an artist. When she thought of the virtue determination, she signed up for that virtue because she had a painting, this painting that she has painted, which you see is in desert soil, much like the slide we had of where Jesus walked. When she thought of the determination, she thought of this native Florida wildflower. It's called sky blue lupin. And she painted the flower because it's an unexpected sight in the landscape of sandy scrub. In Florida, sandy scrub actually is an unexpected sight these days. This desert-like habitat of Florida scrub is tough on plants, and it's tough on animal life as well. It's because the soil is called sugar sand. It holds very little water, and it reflects and magnifies light and the heat of the sun, so it is very desert-like. Nutrients are sparse, and there's not much shade. Anything living here has to adapt and persist in order to thrive. To conserve moisture, plants have to develop long tap roots. You can see the tap roots reaching down into this dry earth. They have to develop long tap roots to reach the underground water. To reduce evaporation, their leaves may be waxy or covered with tiny hairs like the lupin. Elizabeth says to her, this is determination. Through perseverance and adaptation, this wildflower exemplifies the phrase, bloom where you are planted. We can develop our determination to persevere and to be the best that we can be in spite of the environment that we find ourselves in at any point in time. The negative side of the lupin's determination is that because of their extreme adaptation to harsh conditions, they find it difficult to grow in a garden setting. So flexibility and openness help us to adapt to new settings as we move through our lives as well. Sky blue lupins start blooming now, and they last through May. Their scrub habitat is at a slightly higher elevation in Florida, and so that's also the ideal place that we as human beings want to build. And we build right over top of those environments. So if you still want to see this kind of scrub plant life, you can visit the Naples Preserve, the Conservancy, and Rookery Bay. You'll find the sky blue lupin in those places. As a noun, determination is really that decision. It's a decision that you and I make every day, every moment of every day, when we consciously know that we're making it to bloom where we are planted. That's right where your feet are. Determination, if you look at it and just take the D off, determination is not to terminate. Don't give up. Don't terminate your life, your thoughts, your faith. At this point in time, you need it now. It's a stick-to-itiveness, isn't it? It gives us the ability to focus, to really focus on what it is that's before us and any particular task that's at hand, and see that we can stay with it and get it done or not. That is the decision that you and I make. That in doing so, what happens is we bring up the quality of what it is to be aligned with the power of God. And then you and I focus it. We aim that power at what it is that we are doing, at the relationship that we're engaged in that moment. And it may be, thank you for showing me what it is that I want, and it may be, thank you for showing me what I don't want. Both things are involved in our lives, and determination is that quality that causes you to persevere. Jesus was determined. We could see it, I could feel it in that picture that was up while Joey was singing. He spent 40 days and 40 nights, just enough time. That's what that number 40 means. It's just the perfect amount of time, 40 days and 40 nights. Where? In the wilderness. It was like sugar scrub to Jesus. It was a place where he had to grow his roots down to really know who he was and where he was. 40 days and 40 nights with nothing to eat or drink. When was the last time you went 40 days between meals? Can you imagine? And one of the temptations then that he heard within himself was to turn the stone to bread. Could he have done that? Of course. All things are possible with God. He didn't do that. He refused. It was like, get behind me, he said to the monkey mind that was tempting him. Get behind me. I need your support. I need it now more than ever. Because he was determined to figure out, to be clear on who he was as a divine child of God, just as you're determined, I know, to see who it is that you are as God's beloved. who it is, and what he was called to do. And it wasn't until he lived through the wilderness experience that he actually entered into his ministry. He was 30 years old, and then he had those last 3 years before he rose up so that he would be walking with each of us hand in hand every day. It was only after that wilderness experience then that he began to actually say something that you say every day. He began to use his I am. And he began to use it very carefully. He aligned his I am with what was true of him. And that truth set him free. And anyone who just took a moment to touch him, to sit near him, to be in that light, as is with you when you're in your radiance and people are drawn to you, in that moment, they, as well as you, feel God's presence. And there are always overcomings. And in that light, in that love, he became this amazing being that you and I have set as an example. Not an exception, an example of what we're here to do and to be. Is there any difference in your life between when something's really, really easy, is like, that's just the simplest thing to do, and when there's an effort and you have to use your determination to do it? Is there any difference? Do you feel any more satisfaction when it's complete? You do. We do. If it's easy, we don't even really notice. That if we have some kind of, it's almost like a birth canal that we go through, some kind of a tunnel that we go through, and we come out, we go, wow, look at that, I did it. I have to say, I changed the batteries in my air conditioning unit on my wall the other day. I felt so successful. I actually didn't know that they had the joys of ownership, right? I didn't know they had batteries, and that would run the entire system. AAA batteries, folks. 2 AAA batteries. Really? It can be as simple as that. In Philippians 2:13, it says, "It is God who, for his own generous purpose, gives you the intention and the power to act." So there was this man. Excuse me one moment, I'm going to get a drink of water. Well, not quite yet, Dove. If you start now, though, you'll be playing through the rest of the talk, but that's fine too. It's up to you. Cheers. God, love her. I love Jody. I'll look at you, I guess. So there's this man, and he's sleeping in a cabin. And all of a sudden, the entire cabin fills with light. I mean, just brilliant, glorious light. And he hears this voice come down, and it says to him, well, I'm going to put right before you, I'm going to put this enormous rock. And poof, there was this huge rock right in front of the man. And he heard the voice say, I want you to do something. We can imagine he was all ears, right? He's like, what do you want me to do? And the voice said, push on the rock. I want you to push on the rock with all your might. And boom, the light was gone. So you can imagine the man began to push on the rock. He pushed on the rock day after day. He pushed on the rock. He pushed on the rock for years, waiting for the light to come back. Every day he got very, very sore. It was hard to push on the rock, but he kept pushing because he'd heard the voice said, keep pushing. He thinks, oh my God, I'll never move this daggum rock. And it didn't move, it didn't budge at all. But then one day, the light came back. And he hears the voice of God again, and it says, all I ever asked was for you to push on the rock. And you have. Why is it you feel like there's a failure going on? I didn't ask you to move the rock. I just asked you to push on the rock. And look at you. Your arms are so big. Your chest has gotten so developed. Your back is all V'd out. Look at you. I didn't ask for you to move the rock, but it was through the opposition, through the pushing, the exercising of your faith, your determination to stay with it, that you've grown. That's fantastic. Now you've done what you needed. If you'd like, I'll move the rock for you. mean, think about it. We can relate to that, right? We're moving our spiritual muscles. We're using our muscles by facing whatever's before us. And is there sometimes a difficulty with that? Yes. Is there sometimes a pushback? Yes. But you're becoming stronger, more faith-filled. You are applying your spiritual principles. There's an acronym for push that you could use when things are difficult and you push. Could it be that it means pray until something happens? Push. Jesus did. He knew his mission and he stuck to it. He's such an excellent example of determination for us, because while he knew that he was going to die, as we do, he also knew that he would rise up through that situation and every situation. That's what we're made for. We are Eastering beings. Jesus stuck to his mission, and through him we learned several things. We learned to keep in contact with the divine within us. We learned to stay prayed up. That's what we call it with our chaplains, to stay prayed up. We learned to avoid energy leaks, gossip and small talk and finding fault and holding on to the broken bits. We've learned that, to keep on keeping on and to give thanks, lift our eyes from the dilemma, give thanks. And Jesus, who spent the majority of his time in Galilee around the sea, this metaphor of water is huge in his ministry, essentially says to the mariner in us, just stay your course. Peace, be still. There's an Irish saying that says, the difference between determination and stubbornness is that one comes from a strong will and one comes from a strong want. That's the difference. So let's take that metaphor of the water. Let's keep with that for a minute, because, the rudder of a boat, doesn't matter how big the boat is, the rudder of the boat has very little measurable power in and of itself. Yet all the driving force of the engine, the sails, whatever kind of boat it is, the carrying capacity of the hull, they all depend upon the rudder for direction. Your mind, your body, your soul is looking to you for direction. And as with the turning of the rudder, the shifting of our attitudes, the shifting of our mental, our emotional, our spiritual attitudes focus the divine energy in our lives and move us as living vessels, living prayers, if you will, on the sea of life. When you and I experience wilderness, stress, and disappointment, or upset, or temptation, and they can appear in our lives, how we respond, where we aim our rudder in that moment, how we stay determined to be the light of the world, to express love, to be at peace, that makes all the difference. Bless you. Do you remember the song, The Itsy Bitsy Spider? Our fingers just go like this right away. You did it right away. You can do it with me. So our pre-K kids, this is what they're doing today, the Itsy Bitsy Spider thing, right? And do you remember the song? The itsy bitsy spider walked up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain, and the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. Determination in even the smallest part of life. Right? It's so cool how from the time we were tiny, we've been being taught this. From the time we were tiny. So that we'll apply it in the smallest of places, the most minute decisions we make, and the big things that happen to us. I was on a cruise to Alaska, and I was in the spa. I spent a lot of time in the spa. It was a great place. It was like you could see forever and ever. It was up high in the ship. And I'm on the treadmill. Now, I'm a distance runner. I don't spend a lot of time on treadmills, don't know how to use them very well. I realize that they are moving. That's pretty much it. But I knew that running on water wasn't going to be an option. So I'm on the treadmill on this beautiful ship with my father, actually. But I see an island that's coming. Now the island is over here and is coming like that, and we're going by the island, so I'm paying attention to the island, and I'm watching the island, and I turned my head to look at the island. Well, don't do that on a treadmill. You don't want to turn any part of your body. If you're going to head in this direction, keep heading in that direction. Do not lead to the right or to the left, because what happened was I got to a certain point, and it was just the right amount of leaning, apparently. Then I was thrown off the treadmill. I went flying back, all the way back to the wall at the back of the gym, landing directly on my back, just flat as a pancake like that. I mean, there's a lot of force in a treadmill. Yeah. So, whom, and I'm looking around wondering if anyone noticed. There's a whole row of bicyclists. By the way, everyone is in the most stunning workout clothes on a cruise. And they don't look as if they're actually sweat. I was, of course, sweating and back there on my back. And I'm just lying there thinking, now how does one get up elegantly? And a man, very good-looking man, by the way, came off of his bicycle and came over top of me and looked down and said, "Do you need any help?" And I said, no, actually, I'm fine. Just kind of enjoying the ceiling. And I thought, okay, what do I do with this? Okay, Lord, what do I do with this? So I got up in my time frame, and I just kind of brushed it off like, one of these. The treadmill was still going. How embarrassing is that? It's going all by itself. It didn't stop automatically. No. It's going as if to say, come on. Just bring it on. So I immediately, to enter that, I thought, I'm getting back on, right? You can't not get back on. So you do this. You jump on the rails, right? You jump on the rails, and then you time it, and I'm holding on to the handles to time it. By this time, everybody in the gym is watching me. It's now or never, Lord. And so with great determination, I kind of assessed how fast it was going, and I jumped on and started running as fast as I could. But that's what life causes us to do sometimes. And man, I don't know if you've been thrown off a treadmill or not. But you don't have to be, because I've done it for you. We're cells in the same body of Christ consciousness. Peace, be still. We get back on. We do it again. So what if we fall down? We're here to help each other stand up. And in standing, we can help lift others as well. In Philippians 3:15-16, it says, "Let those of us who are mature be of the same mind. And if you think differently about anything, this too God will reveal to you. Only let us hold fast to what we have attained." Ah, she's good. It's a beautiful book, Anam Cara. It's about caring for one another. It's about kindness and friendship. In Gaelic terms, that friendship knot that draws us ever closer, though there are spaces in the nodding. A blessing of solitude. May you recognize in your life the presence, power, and light of your soul. May you realize that you're never alone, that your soul, in its brightness and belonging, connects you intimately with the rhythms of the universe. May you have respect for your own individuality and difference. And may you realize that the shape of your soul is unique, that you have a special destiny here, that behind the facade of your life, there is something beautiful, good, and eternal. It's happening. And may you learn to see yourself with the same delight, the same pride, the same expectation with which God sees you every moment of every day. May you and I today, like St. Patrick, like Jesus, determine what's best and just leave the rest, remembering God's moving the rocks for you. God bless.